Speed is something that almost every one of the significant characters in superhero history has possessed. Marvel Comics has had many speedsters over the years, and even though they could be similar, each one managed to have a unique arc. Some of these characters are also related to each other, but then there's a character who is someone fans might not imagine making an appearance in Marvel. If you're a fan of speedster characters, you can identify this character when he's teased on this list. Let's review this crazy list of Marvel characters who are the best speedsters. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Runner, also known as Gilpetrodon. The Runner is one of the universe's elders, indicating that we need a proper idea regarding his origin. Since he's an elder, he's the oldest speedster in the Marvel Universe. According to him, during one of his appearances in the comics, as told to Silver Surfer, he's 5 billion years old. But that makes him somewhat younger amongst the elders of the universe. One of the most significant moves made by this speedster has to be the time when he and the elders almost killed Galactus. Thanos, the well-known villain who dominated the Marvel Cinematic Universe, also came across the Runner to acquire the space gem from him, and aged him by 1 million years, to weaken him using the time gem. But the Runner managed to get away when he was handed to the Collector later. The primary source of his power was a portion of the Power Primordial, which is some of the residual energy left over from the Big Bang. Thus, there's no precise measure of his maximum speed, which makes him one of the best speedsters in the Marvel Universe. Fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe can get an understanding of him, since he has powers that are pretty similar to the Eternals. But the Runner has these powers at a higher level. While he might not be one of the most popular Marvel characters, he conducted a galactic marathon that featured popular characters like Makkari, Mixim, Fast Forward, Black Racer, and Monica Rambeau. The winner of that tryout and the other racers will appear on this list. Adam Warlock. Fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will clearly remember Adam Warlock, as he appeared in the last entry to James Gunn's Guardian of the Galaxy trilogy. Adam Warlock is a genetically engineered character created by a group of scientists from Earth, and to much surprise, he was an absolute success, being a perfect life form. Even though he was created with evil purposes in mind, he managed to escape from the hold of his nefarious creators. Later on, he ends up having an interesting relationship with the Soul Gem, when the Soul Gem tries to take control of him, but he manages to overcome this, and it becomes a part of him, and gets placed on his forehead. One of the most essential storylines of this character has to be the Infinity Gauntlet run, where we saw him team up with Pip, Gamora, Drax, Moondragon, and divide the Infinity Gems amongst them as a means of safekeeping. As he was genetically engineered, Adam Warlock's unique biology provided him with various capabilities. His power of flight enables him to fly faster than light at times, making him quite an extraordinary figure for speedsters in Marvel. One of the primary sources of his power has to be his symbiotic bond with the Soul Gem. The gem itself stated that Adam was its most powerful host, and thus, he could counter attacks from people using the gem. Besides his superpowers, Adam has vast knowledge based on his experiences, resolving various issues and going against villains like the Mad Titan himself. An exciting skill he possessed had to be his martial arts expertise, which he got by absorbing the skills of Autolycus, a Black Knight, and Gamora. Despite the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe being unknown, Adam Warlock's character, who's quite dumbed down, is now part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Makkari. We recently witnessed the Eternals appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Makkari made quite an impact by showcasing her capabilities. Makkari, just like the other Eternals, was built by Arishem the Judge, so that they could protect planets with sentient life from the emergence, the growth of the celestial seed deep inside the planet to take place. The common enemies of the Eternals were the Deviants, and they protected the humans from these monsters. Initially, the character was a male until Sprite erased her memories, and she was chosen as the only means of contact with the dreaming Celestial. Still, the latter's death led her to lose her speech and hearing while trying to communicate because of utilizing all her resources. Funnily enough, there was a time in the comics when she met Elvis Presley and taught him some cool guitar tricks. This character appeared in the form of two other characters in Marvel Comics, Mercury and Hurricane, during the Golden Age. Makkari can levitate herself by manipulating the gravitational forces around her, allowing her to lift things around her. She was so focused on being fast that she would manage to be successful, but at the cost of losing other powers, like flight and matter manipulation. But she would get her powers back after the trickery done on her by the mischievous Sprite. Sentry. Robert Reynolds, an ordinary man with a lot of mental issues, ended up taking an experimental serum called the Golden Sentry Serum. This serum would unlock many powers inside the being and make him one of the most powerful superheroes in Marvel. Like many of the other characters in Marvel, Sentry would have an alternate personality that would be a dark side known as the Void. Over the years, he would team up with several heroes and often go against them as Void. But Sentry, being one of the most depressed characters in Marvel, would continuously seek the means to kill himself. Often he would try to go against certain enemies just to make sure he didn't come out of the situation and die in the process. The character would only fulfill this aspect in the process of killing Null, as his body would be ripped into two halves. And after quite a journey, he would manage to go to the afterlife. This character has a rather dark and heavy arc, but he's still one of the most potent characters possessing godlike powers. There was a time when it was feared how much he could affect reality if he had a breakdown compared to what Scarlet Witch did. In terms of speed, Sentry can think, run, and react at superhuman speed, making him highly capable compared to most other speedsters in Marvel. Even though it wasn't made clear if it was him running one time, he managed to reach a completely different location, leaving a blinding flash of golden light. It would later be understood that this is teleportation, but maybe it's just him running that looks like teleporting. There have been rumors of this character making his MCU debut, and it would be interesting to see how he fits into the franchise. Hermes. Greek mythology is essential in the Marvel Universe, with various gods appearing as characters here. Hermes is the son of Zeus and the nymph Maia, and he has shown his speedster capabilities from a young age. Hermes was a messenger during some of the biggest wars in the Marvel Universe, and one time when he was doing his duties during the Trojan War, he was confused for Makkari. This won't be the only time he would be mistaken for another speedster, as often Quicksilver would end up being one of his aliases during certain events. But comparison with the other speedsters would be a complex topic, since Hermes is the god of speed, language, and commerce. Unlike some of the other beings on this list, Hermes' main power is his speed, and this is clearly because of his Olympian attributes coming into play. But apart from having this speed, Hermes also has quite the pedigree regarding stamina, durability, and strength. The character has also proven his flight speed excellent, as he can reach warp speed by traveling between the dimensional realms of Earth and Olympus. His reflexes further help him navigate during his movements at high speed, and help him keep himself under absolute control. While most other Olympians require a teleportation device for mobility, Hermes can depend entirely on his speed. Northstar. Yes, it was about time we introduced someone from the X-Men to this list, and Jean-Paul Bouvier is one of the best examples of mutant speedsters. As an infant, Bouvier's parents were killed in a car crash, and then his adopted parents would face the same fortune. This would affect him psychologically, and he would end up meeting Raymond Belmond, who would go ahead and help him with his powers. This would also be when Marvel would make Northstar the first mainstream character to come out as gay. It isn't surprising to hear how he used his abilities to his benefit. The character would compete in the Olympics and become a champion. Northstar can propel his body to superhuman speed, and it would almost be as if he had launched himself as a human projectile. This would be primarily because of his ability to focus the kinetic energy of the atomic motion in his body's molecules in a particular direction. There's no precise measure of his speed, but he boasts that he can go beyond the speed of light in a vacuum. A particular move would play a significant role in his endeavors: the ability to move a portion of his body to a superhuman speed. The ability to propel himself is not limited to running. He can also propel himself through the air, thus giving him super speed for flight. Aurora. While it might seem that John Paul had to suffer that childhood all alone, later he would discover that he had a twin sister, and the two were separated during their infancy, and would remain unaware of each other. Jean Marie underwent sufficient mental issues in her childhood, and in time she developed dissociative identity disorder, which would create different personalities. While one would be a repressed and introverted persona, the other would exhibit more of an extroverted persona. One of her interactions with Wolverine during an attack by muggers would profoundly impact her. He would later unite her with her brother, and the duo would join the Alpha Flight team as Aurora and Northstar. Aurora's superhuman speed ability is similar to her brother's, even the workings are identical. She can also fly by focusing her thrusts downward in a controlled manner. Aurora was trained in hand-to-hand combat, while her brother would receive this later. Her personality disorder would lead to multiple personalities over time, and there have been times when she managed to create new personalities when needed. One extraordinary power that requires the brother-sister duo to come together is the Gestalt photokinesis, which can be generated by linking their hands. But her solo light blast can also have devastating results for the enemy. Quicksilver. Marvel fans have been lucky enough to witness two unique interpretations of Quicksilver. While the MCU version would only be able to appear for one movie, the X-Men rendition would give us some of the best speedster scenes in a movie. Pietro Maximoff is the brother of Scarlet Witch, and the duo were considered to be Magneto's children at one point in the Marvel Universe. Their powers and the improvements would be a result of a lot of suffering that they would undergo while being experimented upon in their childhood. Initially, the duo would work under Magneto and carry out his legacy, but they would end up joining the Avengers after realizing the good they can do. One of the primary reasons behind Quicksilver's ability to run at superhuman speeds has to be his efficient cardiovascular and respiratory systems. The character is often compared with Flash from the DC Universe due to some resemblance between them. His body does not produce fatigue poisons as a byproduct of locomotive features. Instead, it expels waste by exhaling during accelerated respiration. Even though the X-Men would have quite a few speedsters over the years, Quicksilver will have quite the impact and become a fan favorite. Speed. Keeping it in the family, let's go to the next generation in this mutant family with Scarlet Witch's son, Thomas Shepard. His superhero alias is Speed, which makes him the ideal candidate to be put on this list, and he's a member of the team of the younger generation of Marvel characters called the Young Avengers. This character has already made its debut in the MCU, even though it's not sure if we will see them appear in the alternate reality or the present one, considering Scarlet Witch magicked him to life using her reality-altering powers. However, the comic books managed to find a resolution for this, since the character's soul is born to a different family in Springfield after an entire altercation with Mephisto. Just like his mother and his uncle, he was also captured for being tested and experimented upon for a long time, which only made him conquer proper control over his powers. With an alias fitting a speedster, Speed is quite an exciting entry in this list, but his capability might make him a bit inferior to the others here. He stated that his top running speed is around 761 miles per hour. There have been times when he's also shown the ability to vibrate the molecules of matter around him to make them explode. He also has good stamina, but can only work in peak form for hours before getting tired. His physiology puts him at a disadvantage when using his power, since there's hardly any protection against the friction produced when he moves at this superhuman speed. Nova. Richard Rider. The MCU recently announced that they will introduce this character to their universe with a solo project as a series. This makes it a perfect opportunity to talk about him, since this character has been hinted at in the MCU several times. Like the Green Lantern origin story, Richard Rider of Earth was selected by the last surviving Centurion of Xandar to inherit his powers and become the Nova Prime after Xandar was destroyed. Ever since he got these powers, Richard Rider has proven his worthiness by taking on the mantle of a superhero, fighting quite a few characters and discovering his abilities one by one. Besides being a reserve member of the Avengers, he would also be a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy and even lead the team at one point. As a speedster, Rider can channel the Nova Force to its peak to extend his capabilities like strength, speed, and durability. This allows him to run and move at speeds beyond the limits of an average human being. The Nova Force even gives him some sort of muscular development to ensure he generates considerably less fatigue and doesn't exert himself easily during battles. It also enables him to withstand significant injuries and recover faster than ever. In an assessment by the Nova Corps, Rider was stated to be less of a threat because of his dependency on the Nova Force. Spitfire. Unlike most other characters here, Spitfire is someone we can expect to make a possible appearance in the What If animated series because of the timeline. Lady Jacqueline Flasworth was serving in Britain's Women's Voluntary Service when Baron Blood, an agent of Nazi Germany, attacked her. While it is normal to expect what might have happened to her after that, in this case, it turned out that Baron Blood was her uncle, thus causing a complicated development of particular abilities in her. The first thing she would discover would be super speed, and a possible explanation for this would be Baron Blood's blood mixing with a cure that the Human Torch tried to administer to her. Even though she's a significant character in this list of speedsters, it's essential to note that her speed is relatively low compared to the others here. The vampire's stamina helps her maintain her pace, and her physiology enables her to do the same. She would later join the team of heroes led by Human Torch, called the Invaders, during World War II. Speed Demon. An observant fan might notice a particular pattern here as we move ahead and get closer to another famous speedster in another significant superhero franchise. James Sanders worked as a chemist, ring any bells, before the Grand Master reached out to him and offered him superhuman powers so that he could join the Squadron Sinister and fight the Avengers. They would lose, and the Grand Master would return them to Earth with their powers. But this team would get together again and try to cause trouble before Doctor Strange erased their memories regarding these powers. After returning to his job, interacting with the Avengers would restore his memory, and he ended up experimenting with himself to increase his speed. Speed Demon's running capability allows him to run at speeds faster than sound, which means that he can run up walls and even run across water. Can you imagine another character who's also capable of these powers? Other than giving him powers, the Grand Master provided him with the musculature that kept him in peak form to use his powers. Fast Forward. Remember that runner conducted that galactic marathon we talked about? Fast Forward was the one who managed to win that marathon amongst other Earth-based speedsters. There's no straightforward origin story for this character, except that he was initially called Buried Alien, and he was an amnesiac speedster running fast to save his universe. Does the name Buried Alien ring any bells? Yes, a lot of speedsters from Marvel somehow managed to sneak in a massive reference to the Flash from DC. Even the name is similar to Barry Allen, and when Runner first discovered him, he wore a tattered red costume and yellow boots. Yes, the fastest man alive ran so fast that he switched his reality and appeared on a list for speedsters from Marvel Comics. The character appeared following the events of DC's iconic Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that only makes sense since he ends up running to his death there. He would later adopt the alias Fast Forward. It's incredible to imagine the absolute fun the creators had when they valued each other's work and ended up paying tribute to one of the best speedsters in comic book history. Slingshot, one of the last additions to the Marvel Comics. Slingshot made her debut in 2008, and would be a part of a team Nick Fury initiated. Yo-Yo Rodriguez gained her powers from the mutated DNA that was possessed by her father, the super criminal John Horton. She joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and went on some of the most remarkable missions that would prove she was an essential addition to the team. Nick Fury trained Slingshot, proving she excels in hand-to-hand combat and firearms. Her super speed ability allows her to run at speeds above the average speed being, and she somehow returns to where she started after using these powers. However, that's a weakness as she can only run a certain distance before ending up where she began. The Blur. Mephisto is one of the most notorious characters in Marvel, and even though he was responsible for killing some of the most essential characters, he would also end up creating Blur. This speedster was a creation under a project by Agent Coulson, and would end up being a part of the Supreme of America squadron. Remember that scene from Clockwork Orange where Alex is tied to a chair and made to watch videos? The same experiment was conducted on Blur. This character is quite a joke, and he would utilize his capabilities to do numerous jobs like window washer, dog walker, and even a computer programmer. Fitting to his name, Blur can blur his body, thus rendering himself invisible to the naked eye. He can also phase through objects by vibrating the molecules of his own body and the object he's phasing through. He generally runs at 500 miles per hour, but he can accelerate when required and increase his speed according to the situation. His increased speed gives him a heightened perception of time, thus making everything around him appear to move slowly. It's wild to imagine this many characters appear in Marvel Comics, and all of them have similar powers. But then, speed is one of the most extraordinary powers to have as a superhero, and speedsters have always played an essential role in some of the most crucial moments in some of the major comic book events. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone!